Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sewing Thursday. You might not know me. I am T from my sewing blog, Sewing by T, or my fabric shop, Simply by T. Or maybe you're joining us today because you are interested in learning about pant slopers. So no matter how you got here, welcome. I've got some really good stuff for you today. So as people are joining me, make sure that you hit like on this video and say hello so that I know that you're here. As we're waiting for people to pop on, you might recognize, if you're in my fabric group, this dress, which I just had a photo of. This is actually a Miss Ruby Tuesday. I added a little placket here in the front. I removed the bottom band, and as you can see, there is baby. So the Miss Ruby Tuesday dress from One Puddle Lane is one of my absolute favorites of all time. Between the original and the add-on packs, it's just amazing. So welcome, Karen. Welcome, Christian. We are going to talk about some really good stuff today. So in the mail late last week, I received, let's see if we can get rid of the glare here. There we go. The Islander Sewing Systems Pants, Etc. book. So book. And the DVD. So let's get to it because there is a lot to cover, and I'm really hoping to keep it under 15 minutes today, which could turn into a struggle. But let me start with this DVD. There's just like two important things I want to point out. Number one, this DVD is actually just a digital copy of a VHS. And I can tell you that because the people in this video have hair that's like this big. Like, it's just, this is definitely from a VHS. But the best thing is that math doesn't change. So don't look at the video and go, oh my God, I'm not gonna learn anything. Like, try to look past the hair and the makeup and the craziness and just understand that the math doesn't change, okay? So math is always good. Numbers don't lie. So let's go back to the book because this is probably the part that you really need to understand. So if you watched their little webinar a couple weeks ago, you've already seen most of this book as far as the measuring. And this is the exact page from the book. If you saw the webinar, this is exactly what we're working with, and this is how we're going to get all our numbers, right? Which is totally cool. I have watched the Craftsy course, and the overall information is more or less the same. As I spoke last week, I think it was last week, the differences here are that we're measuring the front and back of your body separately than just measuring circumference. So in the Craftsy course, all she does is measure circumference, divide that by 4, and then add some arbitrary number. Natasha's mentioning that they're planning on doing the webinar again. So I do recommend, if you didn't catch the webinar and you're not sure or you're not ready to draft pants, because let me tell you, this is a process, definitely keep an eye out for that. So for this system, we actually measure the front and back separately, and that's going to help you catch things like if you have wide hips rather than a large butt, that's going to change where those additions need to go to. Karen's asking if I'm referring back to Susie's Craftsy courses, and I am. She has several on slopers, but she measures the circumference, divides by 4, and adds allowances. This system has you measure the front and back separately. And there's a really good reason for that. Some women have a very flat tummy, and this system is going to account for that. If you go by Susie Furrer's class and you have a flat tummy and a large butt, you're going to end up with a fit that just doesn't work. Now, the Susie Furrer class does walk you through how to adjust your sloper, but I think this is going to get you closer on your first try. Now, I have watched the Susie Furrer class a lot of times, even though I still haven't made a sloper. The reason being, I watched it after I found out I was pregnant, and I did not want to have to go through and try to include the baby bump. It just isn't practical. But I understand the concepts of how to do it. If you are a book learner, if you learn really well from books, then you can skip the DVD. The book only, I believe, is $25, and everything you need in there, or everything you need to understand, is in there. Even though I've watched the Susie Furrer class, I have drafted before, just not pants. As I was reading through this, I felt really, really overwhelmed. And I would normally refer to myself as a book learner. I learn really well from books. So if you're going to only get the book, take your time, go slow. Each part is explained, but it can be really overwhelming. Welcome, Sarah. Caroline, I hope you're able to come back later and watch the video. But yeah, so you can draft pants just from this book. Now, I have not looked to see if this is available on Amazon, but I bet there are used copies out there because this book is from 1991. But as I said, math doesn't change. So you're still going to end up with the same general fit. So that's the book itself. You can draft from the book. My only things to say about the DVD, like I said, it's a copy of a VHS. But the content is all still good, and you don't really need amazing video quality to learn how to draft a sloper. They do walk you through it step by step so that you can understand all the things that are in the book. You cannot do the DVD without the book, though, so you do need the book and the DVD together. And I believe together they're 42, 43, 45, I don't know, in the 40s. And that includes shipping. So there's that little bit that's added on. Before I get too much further, I want to remind everybody, I paid for these. Like, these were not given to me for this review. I did consider asking for them for free to review, but then I remembered that I was probably going to say negative things, and I didn't want to be limited by what I was allowed to say. So I paid for these. This is completely my honest review. And I have zero affiliation with this company. So if you decide to buy it, that's on you. And if you decide that that's not going to work for you, that's cool too. So I did say that I was going to say negative things, and I did notice two things about this that Susie Furrer did better. So there are two spots on your leg that they don't measure, and that is your quad, or your kind of leg measurement, and your calf. So for me, those are really important parts. I have very large quads, which means that the front of my leg, rather than going down, bumps out from where that muscle sits. And if I go by all the other measurements, then my leg may not fit. So this method is going to do great for getting you your crotch curve, but it might not get your leg and your calf. So if you struggle with either of those body parts, this is a really simple tip, and it's not going to detract from the information you get in the book. So let me get to the part where it shows the measurement chart. So on your measurement chart, copy this part out and then add 2, or I would say 4 lines. And what you're going to do is measure the front half of your quad, the back half of your quad, the front half of your calf, and the back half of your calf. You're going to measure where those are lengthwise from your waist, because in this system you measure everything from the waist down. And then once you've drafted your pattern, double check and make sure that your legs actually fit inside the leg that they draft. Now this creates a kind of almost like a straight leg, which means that your calf probably isn't going to be an issue, but that quad can be. And I always run into problems that my quad is like 2 sizes bigger. So definitely take that into consideration. If you have a hard time fitting your quad and your calf, measure them and then compare them to your draft. So in your final draft, I probably should have marked these pages, but I didn't. So your final draft is going to look like this. So instead, you're going to go through and check, make sure that the distance for your quad, the distance for your calf on the front and the back fit. So you just want to make sure that it's big enough. You can adjust from there. The other thing is that this is a little bit looser fit under the bum, but they actually tell you how to tighten it up and give you some ideas of different fits. So the Susie for Her class does include the quad and calf, but she kind of does it. It's not really in the measurements, but she mentions to measure it and check. So if that's a place that's a harder to fit area for you, make sure that you measure those. You could easily combine this book and the information inside of it with the Craftsy course and kind of get the best of both worlds. It will help you with the measuring. You'll get a walkthrough of the drafting. The drafting is very similar once you take in account for the different measurements that they include. I really wanted this one though because it includes vertical measurements, which are extra important if you are not an average inseam. So my inseam is 27 inches from crotch to floor, which means that to my ankle is like 26. The average inseam for most women's patterns are between like 32 and like 30 and 32. So that's a lot of length that I would have to adjust for if I just went with an average measurement. But yeah, I'm really excited to try this. Obviously not until after baby comes because I don't have a waist anymore. I'll have a waist eventually, but not right now. Right now I just have a big watermelon. So yeah, who has questions? Because I feel like I watched the videos, I've read the book, I understand this concept really well, and I want to make sure that I'm answering your questions about these courses because I want to make sure that you're picking the one that's going to work best for you. So who has questions? Karen, I've noticed that you and I are very similar, and we also tend to like very similar things. So, I picked this one because it included lengths, and that was really important to me. So if lengths are really important to you because you have a harder time fitting the length of your body, then this is going to be the best course for you. Now, as I said, the Craftsy course isn't bad, but I felt like there were things missing, and this covered those missing things. So who has questions? Who has questions specifically about either the Islander course or the Craftsy course? Because I'd be happy to answer those. Julie's asking, do you use it for any pattern? So once you have your sloper drafted, you can match that crotch curve onto any pattern. And they do cover in here how to match it. How do you look at, okay, this pattern looks like this. How do I add that? And that way you're picking the right size based on your crotch curve and not necessarily some width suggestion. And that's the part that's really helpful, is that at this point you could take your sloper and draft whatever pair of pants you want because your sloper is already perfect. Or you can say, okay, now I have this sloper. I know what adjustments I need to make. I can compare that to the pattern. So you can make sure that the hip section is going to fit, or for people like me, that the quad has enough room, because without that space, I can't walk. And walking seems important when you're wearing pants. So you can compare the widths. The only thing you'll have to take into consideration is seam allowances. If your pattern includes seam allowances, then you have to account so that you're making sure that there's enough space there. But yes, it's going to help you with the rise of your pants, the shape of that crotch curve is really, really important. So Julie, you're asking if you want the curve to match when you're going from your sloper to the pattern that you want to work with. Your crotch curve should be pretty close. Now, this is going to apply mostly to woven pants and pants for like a very stable knit, like a Ponte. You're not going to want to use it for like a pair of leggings because there's a lot more variation, like space, that the fabric will just stretch and go around you, and it doesn't have to be perfect. But you can compare it because it's going to give you an idea of, do you have enough rise in the back? I mean, I don't have a very large butt, but I've had pants that always give me plumber's crack, and nobody wants plumber's crack. So this will help you account and make sure, okay, the back rise is enough, or the front rise isn't too tall. I actually have a very long front rise, which doesn't make sense for someone of my size, but that's what fits my body. So if you can compare those curves, you can make sure that your rises are high enough, both in the front and in the back, that you have enough space, front to back, and width. So for you, Julie, yes, having a larger butt and a smaller waist, it's going to give you that shape so that you can figure out, okay, I need to blend size, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Because even if you have a smaller waist, you might be smaller in the back than in the front, or smaller in the front than in the back at your waist. And this takes all of that into account. If you have a mommy tummy and you just have that little bit of extra space in the front, well, if we only look at your circumference, we aren't accounting for that. And this does account for that. And that was, honestly, that was one of the things that I was like, whoa, they don't do that in the other class. They don't look at how your circumference is distributed. Because I have a very thin back, but I don't have a sway back. And so it's two different adjustments. But if I have a sloper, I don't have to take that into account at all. I just compare my sloper to the pattern, match up the points, and boom, it's done. Or a menopause tummy, or an I like to drink wine tummy, or chocolate is my new best friend tummy, or for whatever reason, you are not a flat, you do not have a perfectly flat tummy. Well, this is going to make sure that you account for that so that you get that little bit of space, or a lot of space, depending on your body, that you need to make sure that it fits well. It's going to account for people with flat butts or big butts or wide hips, all of those things that our measurements may look the same. But when you compare front and back, now you're looking at two very different bodies. Karen and I have very similar measurements when I'm not pregnant, but our bodies are distributed differently. I have a certain bust measurement, but all of mine is in the front and not in the back. So if I just took quarters, it's going to turn out wrong. But if you take and measure the front and back separately, you're going to account for those body differences. Like Julie's saying, sway back is definitely a very common, and that's a posture difference that changes the curve from your butt to your back. And you want to make sure that your pants are hugging the top, because otherwise you get a gap, which then you need a belt. But a properly fitting pair of pants do not need a belt. A belt is an accessory for fashion, not for holding your pants up. I mean, we use them to hold our pants up, but that's not really what they're for. If your pants fit properly, you don't need a belt because they fit your body. So those are definitely things to be thinking about when you're comparing your sloper. Most problems with slopers are measurement issues. So you will need a friend. The DVD does a very good job of showing you how and where to measure. And I'm 99% sure that I can get Kevin to measure me and do it accurately. The other thing is they do recommend that you measure each part 3 times, just to kind of make sure. So it's one of those things that if you have to have someone measure you who's not a fellow seamstress, this video will do a very good job of showing them where and how to measure so they get it right. Julie, you're mentioning, if you have a big butt and small waist, a sway back adjustment can help, but technically that's not the right adjustment because your back isn't actually swayed. A sway back actually takes length out of that, out of your back, and you don't need to lose length. You need to get it to come tighter against your body. So, the sway back adjustment helps, but then you end up with length issues again. So it's complicated. We can do the adjustments and make it work, but it's not the optimal way to make it work. And when you're comparing optimal versus like functional, optimal is obviously going to look better and require less adjusting. So having your sloper, you can compare and make way less adjustments because it's going to get really close the first time. I'm trying to think. I was talking and then my brain just quit. So anyway, let's see. Karen's saying she got the Measuring Made Easy book. And that one does include measuring thighs and calves. So that's really good to know, Karen. I opted not to do that only because I just wasn't sure how much I was going to like this. And now I kind of regret it because I wish I did get that special measuring tape. But yes, thighs and calves are important. And pants, Julie, you say pants are hard. And I agree with you because I've never made a sloper. But I think if I had a sloper to work from, I wouldn't have to make so many adjustments. Because half the time I'm trying to figure out, well, do I need more room in my front quad? Do I need to scoop the butt more? Am I, and there's so many parts and you have to work from top down and you can end up making an adjustment that makes everything worse. And then you have to go backwards and figure out which one you did wrong. Whereas a sloper is going to get you the closest without having to make a million adjustments. Now, I can't say that a sloper is going to get you 100% perfect every time, only because I don't have a sloper to work from to absolutely prove that. But I know it's going to get me a lot closer than me guessing. And that's kind of where I was at this point, was just guessing. It was like, I don't know. My body looks kind of like this. Maybe I need this adjustment. So the sloper is going to get me really close, and it's going to make sure that I never make a pair of pants where the quad is just simply way too small. And like I said, that's one of my big fit issues. I really think this is going to make making pants much easier, and I'm really hopeful. And like I said, once I've used it, I'll be back on a Sewing Thursday to tell you how well it turned out, and maybe we'll just get before and after photos and take a look at what differences. But I know lots of people struggle with pants, and I think that this could be the missing piece, the piece that will take you from, I hate making pants, they never fit, to, hey, this wasn't so bad. And it's going to get you a lot closer to knowing what adjustments you need without having to guess or make a muslin and then pinch and slash and spread and all that good stuff. All right, so it has been 23 minutes, and I will gladly answer any other questions that come through. But I just want to take a little sidetrack. So for anybody who's typing, go ahead, keep typing. I will answer them. I just want to cover some really important shop updates because baby time is coming. So baby could be here as soon as June 30th, which means that tomorrow is our very last $5 Fabric Friday. And it took me a while to decide what fabric I thought was worthy of the very last $5 Fabric Friday. And I decided that it was going to be rayon spandex florals because I love a good, comfy summer dress in rayon spandex. And it just felt right. So this fabric will be included, $5 a yard. All of our floral rayon spandex is $5 a yard. So that will go live tomorrow morning. So that's number one. Number two, current shop turnaround times are 2 to 3 days. And that will be good through June 29th. After that, I'm asking you to allow me a 2-week turnaround time, only because babies show up whenever they want, and they don't care about schedules and timelines and fabric businesses. So that will allow me leeway. As long as baby isn't here, then I'll continue on that 3-day time frame, and you'll still get your orders. So if you need something, can you order it before then? Because I can't fit in your fabric emergency in between nursing a newborn and just trying to stay alive. What else? Monday will be our last mystery box Monday. And those boxes are actually going to include 2 yards of rayon spandex in a print, and then 2 coordinating solids of some type. I don't know what it's going to look like. I've got some ideas in my head of what those might look like. So we're not doing a color theme this time. This time I'm just promising you 2 yards of rayon spandex plus 2 2-yard cuts of things that coordinate in that. I think that's all the important shop news, and I don't see any new questions. So this is my last Sewing Thursday until August, unless baby decides to be very, very late, and then it might be September. But, if you want to keep an eye on Baby Watch, then you're welcome to join the fabric group, and I'll certainly post when baby's born, and I'll share photos of him. But until then, I am going to miss everybody. I'm going to miss doing Sewing Thursday. I'm going to miss getting to talk about this stuff that I have nobody else to talk to, because my husband doesn't want to hear about pant drafting, because he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. But yes, so thank you everybody for joining me today. And I guess I will see you in August or September. Julie's saying that 4th babies are not usually late. I mean, I've had 3 kids. The first one was 38 weeks. The second one was 41 weeks. The third one was 40 weeks. Eventually, I will have a baby. I will not be pregnant forever, although it might feel like it. But yes, I will miss hanging out with all of my sewing friends. And of course, if you have a sewing related question that I can answer by either email or Facebook post, feel free to send me a message, because I'm going to be really, really bored. I just don't want to commit to these live videos and then I just totally not show up and you guys are like, well, is she in labor? But then I'm like, it was false labor, and it's just too much for my brain. And I mean, it's a lot. Natasha's mentioning that her friend caught her 4th baby herself. So my midwife is just about an hour away. And my previous 2 births, from active labor to baby, was just about 3.5 hours. So I'm hopeful that she'll make it in time. I'd hate to have her miss it, although I think my husband's pretty qualified at this point and we should be okay. But I will miss you guys. And like I said, when baby's here, I will be sharing lots of photos. Welcome, Mary. You are catching us just at the end, but I can hang out here for a second if you had a question specifically about the pants drafting course. Otherwise, you can watch the replay and then just post your question and I'll try to get back to you. Excuse me. Of course, make sure that you like this video and share with your friends. Thanks, Christian. I try to keep our newsletters interesting, and certainly the best way to keep up with us is to be signed up for our newsletter. Those go out Friday mornings. They'll usually tell you what the $5 fabric of the day, or of the $5 fabric, $5 Friday fabric is. Sorry, my brain getting all those things. And it gives you shop updates, like the fact that I'm switching to 2-week turnaround times. Karen, I think Kevin is more than ready. He caught our last 2. So, our midwife is there as extra just to make sure that nothing unusual happens. So, all right. Thank you everybody for joining me, and I'm going to miss you guys, but I will see you in August or September.